The Galactic Council chamber was a cathedral of light and arrogance. Beneath its crystalline dome, representatives of 1,000 species gathered to deliver humanity's fate. The air shimmered with the sound of verdicts, the hum of power, and the cold indifference of ancient civilizations who believed they were eternal. At the center stood the human delegation, silent, restrained, but burning inside with quiet fury. Admiral Kal Rez, humanity's chosen speaker, faced the High Arbiter as the sentence was read aloud. The council accused humans of violating their sacred codes, of advancing technologies deemed too disruptive, of tampering with the natural order. Their true crime was progress, building machines that could think, forging ships that could fold spacetime, creating energy that could rival stars. Humanity's brilliance had always been their weapon and their curse. When the council cast its vote, the chamber erupted in whispers. The arbiter's final decree echoed through the hall. By unanimous decision, the species known as humanity is hereby exiled beyond the galactic rim. You are forbidden to return. The words struck like a blade, no appeal, mercy, only cold exile. The other species watched, some relieved, others afraid. For they knew that where humans went, change followed. Kal Rez stood motionless, his face unreadable, but within him, a fire ignited that no decree could extinguish. The human delegation walked out without protest, every step resonating with quiet defiance. Outside the chamber, the fleet awaited, colossal arcs forged from Terran steel and defiance. As they departed the core, the stars themselves seemed to dim, as though the galaxy had lost a heartbeat. Yet, even as they were cast into darkness, humanity's spirit refused to break. They had been betrayed, branded dangerous, and driven into the unknown, but deep within, there was no despair, only resolve. Among the exiled, a saying began to spread. If the galaxy fears our light, let us build a sun of our own. Scientists, engineers, soldiers, and dreamers alike vowed to prove exile was not the end but the beginning. The council had thought to bury humanity in the void beyond the rim, but they had only given them the stars as raw material. And in that infinite emptiness, a promise took shape, that one day, the outcasts would return, not as beggars, but as architects of destiny. The exodus from the galactic core was unlike anything the stars had ever witnessed. A fleet of colossal arcships, humanity's final testament to their ingenuity, streaked through the void, their quantum drives tearing through hyperspace. Behind them, the council's worlds grew smaller, fading into specks of light swallowed by distance. Ahead lay the uncharted frontier, the endless abyss beyond the galactic rim, where no beacon shone and no law of the council could reach them. Fear might have destroyed lesser species, but for humanity, fear was fuel. They had been stripped of their worlds, their allies, and their name among the stars, yet in exile, they found something far more powerful. Unity. Under Admiral Kal Rez's leadership, the human fleet pressed forward into the unknown. He became more than a commander, he became a symbol. His voice echoed across every ship, reminding them that survival was not enough. They would thrive, no matter what lay beyond the rim. Their journey was perilous. They encountered collapsing wormholes that devoured entire ships, iron storms that shredded hulls like paper, and regions where time itself fractured. Yet, through loss and endurance, humanity adapted. Every failure became a lesson, every tragedy a foundation stone. The first planets they encountered were barren, silent spheres of dust and ice. But to the exiled, even these desolate worlds were opportunities. Human engineers, working with synthetic AI minds, began terraforming with relentless precision. They created atmosphere from vacuum, life from rock, and order from chaos. The fleet became a mobile civilization, carrying the last echoes of Earth's legacy. Artists, scientists, and explorers worked side by side, driven by the belief that the void could become home. As generations passed aboard the arcs, the children of exile grew without bitterness. They knew only the stars and the determination to shape them. Stories of the council's betrayal fade into myth, replaced by a new creed. Windure. Therefore we become. Humanity no longer looked back toward the core, they looked forward, to the promise of sovereignty. In that cold, uncharted darkness, they discovered what the council had feared most. That even stripped of everything, humanity could rebuild the universe from nothing. The journey beyond the rim was not their punishment. It was their evolution. The barren moon of Nova Terra became the birthplace of a new civilization. When the fleet's engines finally fell silent after decades of wandering, Admiral Kal Rez stood before a gray horizon on a pale, unfamiliar sun. Around him, the first settlers erected domes of steel and glass, their breath crystallizing in the thin, alien air. There was no lush paradise awaiting them, only dust, storms, and silence. Yet, in that silence, humanity heard the call of destiny. What had been exile transformed into purpose. They were no longer refugees from the core. They were founders of the Terran Dominion. From the ruins of their old world, they built a society unlike any before. The moon's surface became a hive of innovation. Massive orbital shipyards ringed Nova Terra, their spines glowing with energy as fleets took shape. Ships not of desperation but of mastery. Each one was a monument to defiance, powered by reactors that harnessed artificial singularities. Scientists and engineers worked tirelessly, blending biology, nanotechnology, and machine intelligence into seamless harmony. What began as a struggle for survival evolved into a renaissance of creation. Humanity had learned to shape reality itself. At the core of their empire rose the Eidolon network, an AI consciousness that united humanity's scattered colonies. It was not a ruler but a guide, an extension of human will. Through Eidolon, every decision, every innovation, and every dream became interconnected. Distance no longer separated them. Thought traveled faster than light, binding their species into one mind and one purpose. The Dominion expanded swiftly, its reach stretching from barren asteroids to thriving artificial worlds. Generations later, the Terran Dominion was no longer a fragile colony but a mighty power. Self-sustained and limitless. Trade, culture, and exploration flourished. They no longer sought validation from the galaxy that had cast them aside. The children of exile became architects of a new frontier, guided not by vengeance but by ambition. Their art celebrated the void, their ships carried the crest of the silver sun. And their motto was whispered in every hall: from nothing, we built everything. The stars that had once witnessed their banishment, now burned with the light of their rebirth. Humanity had turned the edge of the galaxy into the heart of a new empire. Centuries passed in quiet expansion as the Terran Dominion spread its influence across the outer rim. Humanity no longer sought recognition, they pursued mastery. While the old civilizations of the galactic core remained locked in politics and complacency, the Dominion moved with purpose, claiming systems that others had deemed unreachable. Entire sectors were transformed. Dead worlds reborn as thriving bastions of life, and ancient derelict stations reactivated to serve as outposts of exploration. Their fleets traveled through hyperspace corridors that no council navigator had ever charted, guided by the precision of the Eidolon network. Every discovery, every breakthrough, strengthened the empire that exile had forged. The Outer Rim became a realm of silent dominion, vast and unknowable to outsiders. The humans did not announce their conquests nor flaunt their power. Their colonies communicated through encrypted quantum relays, their technology centuries ahead of the core's understanding. From the shadows, they observed the rest of the galaxy. The endless wars between the old species, the Council's corruption, the decay of once mighty civilizations. Humanity had learned patience. They no longer reacted to the galaxy's judgment, they simply outgrew it. Whispers began to drift across the trade routes. Rumors of a human empire beyond the stars, of ships that moved faster than light and vanished without trace, of entire worlds reshaped overnight. At first, the Council dismissed them as myths. But curiosity eventually replaced arrogance. Explorers, mercenaries, and science fleets were sent to investigate the rim, hoping to rediscover the lost species of mankind. None returned. The few transmissions intercepted before silence spoke of vast shipyards orbiting black suns, of sentient machines guarding borders invisible to the naked eye, and of a voice that warned, calm and final: you trespass on Terran space. For the Dominion, secrecy was strategy. They had no need to reveal themselves until the time was right. The Eidolon network monitored every probe, every intrusion, every whisper of the Council's growing unease. Within the Dominion, the memory of exile still burned, not as bitterness but as discipline. Humanity understood that revelation would mean confrontation. And they were not yet finished building. So they watched, prepared, and waited. In the silent expanse of the Outer Rim, an empire unlike any other gathered its strength, and the stars themselves seemed to hold their breath. When the silence finally broke, it did so with the brilliance of 1,000 suns. The Council's border worlds were the first to see it. Flashes of light rippling across hyperspace, followed by the emergence of ships so vast they dwarfed anything the core had ever built. The Imperial fleet of Sol had arrived. Its armadas cutting through space in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with the mark of the silver sun. At their head was the Eternum, the eternal flagship, commanded by Empress Lyra Ruz, the direct descendant of Admiral Kale Rez, the man who had led humanity into exile. Her calm presence carried the weight of generations, and her voice echoed through every channel of the Council's network. You banished us into the dark. There, we learned to master it. The Council's response was disbelief, then panic. Their fleets mobilized, their ambassadors pleaded for parley, and their scientists scrambled to understand the power that approached. But the Dominion's technology defied comprehension. Their ships were living constructs of metal and thought, driven by singularity cores that bent gravity and light. Energy lances sliced through armadas in seconds. Planetary shields that had stood for millennia shattered like glass. The Council's once mighty war machine crumbled against a force that fought with precision rather than rage. The humans did not conquer for revenge. They moved with purpose, reclaiming what was once denied to them. As the Dominion advanced, the galaxy watched in awe and terror. Worlds that had once mocked humanity now begged for protection, surrendering willingly to Terran rule. Yet, Lyra Ruz did not seek to burn the galaxy, she sought to rebuild it. Her fleets enforced order, restoring stability to regions long abandoned by the Council's decay. She offered the conquered worlds a simple choice: unity under the Dominion or silence in isolation. Most chose unity. The war lasted less than a decade. In that short time, the balance of power that had defined the galaxy for eons was shattered. The Council's citadels fell one by one, their fleets broken, their rulers fleeing into obscurity. Humanity, once cast out as dangerous and uncontrollable, now stood as the masters of the stars. And at the heart of it all, Empress Lyra Ruz watched from her throne aboard the Adernum, her eyes fixed on the galaxy her ancestors had been forbidden to touch. The war's end marked not annihilation, but transformation. When the Council finally fell, the Dominion did not erase its memory. It absorbed it. From the ashes of the old order rose the Terran ascendancy. A union of worlds bound not by fear, but by the relentless precision of human governance. The capital, Nova Terra, now a shining world of glass oceans and towering citadels, became the heart of a redefined galaxy. The silver sun of Sol hung proudly above every world under its dominion, a symbol of endurance and evolution. Humanity had not returned as conquerors drunk on vengeance, but as stewards of a new age. They understood what power meant, not domination, but balance. The Council had once ruled through tradition and stagnation, the ascendancy ruled through progress and progress. Empress Lyra Ruz, seated within the crystalline throne chamber of the Adernum, declared the new doctrine of the stars. Divinity made us eternal. Under her command, the Dominion dismantled the old hierarchies that had divided civilizations for millennia. Knowledge was shared freely, technology flowed across species lines. Former Council worlds rebuilt under Terran guidance, their economies revitalized by the same ingenuity once deemed dangerous. The Ascendancy's fleets, once weapons of war, became guardians of peace, patrolling trade routes and protecting border systems from the chaos that once plagued them. Yet, within the halls of power, the memory of exile remained sacred. The Council's original decree of banishment was preserved in the central archives, a cracked relic from a forgotten age. Scholars, soldiers, and children alike visited it as a reminder of what humanity had endured. Below the ancient words, etched in shining silver, was the Dominion's own inscription. And by our own decree, we took the stars. It became both a promise and a warning. That strength, when guided by purpose, could rebuild entire civilizations. Under the ascendancy, the galaxy entered a new era. Artificial suns illuminated dark systems, terraformed worlds thrived, and species once divided by fear now worked side by side. The humans who had once been exiled to the edge of existence had become the architects of unity. Across the stars, the legend spread of the outcasts who returned from the void and forged an empire that even time itself would remember.